The first time I realized they were clearing me out, I was halfway through a stale bran muffin in the conference room they always used for HR firings, neutral paint, sad plant, window facing a wall. Trevor Lang, our newly imported CFO with a jawline that deserved its own LinkedIn post, slid a sleek folder across the table like it was a peace offering. "Let's make this transition smooth, Judith," he said with the kind of smile you give a nursing home patient who's outlived her usefulness. "Just sign here. You'll be a valuable consultant during onboarding." Consultant, that corporate hospice word. It meant, you're done, but we're pretending it's your idea. I kept my face still, even as my hands itched. I'd built Brixley's financial backbone over 9 years, designed the internal wire systems, oversaw every compliance loop, and cleaned up 3 fiscal near crises without so much as a plaque in the break room. And now, I was being smoothly transitioned like expired software. "Happy to help, Trevor," I said calmly. "But we'll need audit sign-off on any documentation handover. Standard 4.3 still applies, doesn't it?" His smile faltered. Of course, it's all procedural. But I saw the twitch in his temple. He didn't know what Standard 4.3 was. He thought systems just handed themselves over, like magic. I'd built those systems with a very particular safeguard, one that required dual authentication handoff for core liquidity transfers. Not out of paranoia, out of experience. Experience they now wanted buried under a rug labeled early retirement. If you've made it this far, you're clearly a sharp one. And listen, most folks never hit subscribe or drop a like. They just float through these stories like ghosts at a party. But it really helps the team when you do. Keeps the lights on, the coffee flowing, and the secrets spilling. So if you're enjoying this ride, give it a nudge. We notice, we appreciate it. Now, where was I? Ah, yes, Trevor. The next week, I noticed my access levels starting to change. Subtle at first, a missing dashboard, a frozen credential here. They were isolating me from the very structure I created. He sent a cheerful email. "Thanks again for the handoff materials. Our team's doing great. Only problem, I hadn't handed off a damn thing." Then came the kicker. A junior analyst, fresh out of grad school and drunk on espresso and spreadsheets, let it slip during a meeting. "We're updating the legacy protocols from Obsolete Liabilities docs." I blinked. "Obsolete what?" He turned pale. "Oh my God, I didn't mean Trevor. He just calls some of the old files that, not you, I mean too late." The name stuck in my ears like a nail in drywall. Obsolete liability. That's what I was now. A punchline in someone else's PowerPoint. HR floated a transition opportunity. No desk, no reports, no responsibilities. Just a nice title and an email signature to make them feel better about what they were doing. But here's the thing about being quietly competent for too long. People forget where the wires run. They forget who laid the bricks beneath their feet. And they certainly forget to ask what happens if those wires suddenly don't connect the way they used to. I went home that night, poured a glass of boxed wine, and opened my own archive. Not the sanitized company folder, but the backup. One I'd kept when I realized Trevor's idea of innovation was duct taping buzzwords to the walls and calling it progress. In that archive was a clause, Standard 12.9b. It wasn't flashy, just a quiet footnote in an old compliance doc. It said that under certain unverified handoffs, any scheduled wire exceeding $100M would require dual confirmation by both the legacy and active CFO level roles. A built-in break system, one they'd need me for, and guess what? No one had revoked my key. I stared at the clause, then at the calendar. The gala was 2 weeks out, a $400M acquisition on the horizon. Trevor had the stage lined up, the press briefed, the investors glowing. But me, I had the manual, and they never bothered to read it, not yet. The words stuck in my brain like gum under a conference table. Obsolete liability. I replayed it in my head while staring at the corporate retirement incentive email HR sent at 6:01 p.m., just late enough that no one could reply until the morning. Smart, calculated, cowardly. The subject line had all the grace of a tax audit, new opportunity, transition consulting engagement. Inside, a carefully worded burial notice wrapped in HR cinnamon speak. They even had the nerve to call it a celebration of career legacy. Funny, I didn't feel like confetti. The offer included a discretionary bonus, 2 months of Cobra, and a free LinkedIn Learning subscription. Like that was going to rewire me into one of their hoodie-wearing spreadsheet toddlers. I didn't even finish reading, just hit print, then I burned the hard copy in the sink. At first, I thought I'd let it go. Maybe I'd walk away, grow tomatoes, relearn French. But then I saw the new wireframe documentation Trevor's team had uploaded to the central archive. It was flagged as final system architecture post-migration. I clicked through, and that's when I saw it. They'd kept the core, my core. The same procedural shell I'd built in 2018 after our old CFO tried to process a $70M transfer through an unsecured channel and nearly triggered a federal inquiry. I'd locked it down, designed a transfer protocol that couldn't be rubber-stamped. A dual auth structure embedded deep under what I labeled as Legacy Compliance Tier 2. And there it was, still intact, still live. They'd moved the furniture and changed the wallpaper, but the pipes, they were still mine. I leaned back and let the humiliation settle into something sharper. Not rage, not yet, just a click like when a safe resets. Cold clarity. I wasn't going to yell or complain, or march into Trevor's glass office and demand respect. No, that's what they expected. Drama, fireworks. A reason to label me emotional or unstable. Instead, I made tea. Then I got to work. I pulled the original documentation from my personal encrypted drive, the one I'd built back when the servers crashed every third Friday. Every line of code, every clause, every fail-safe. It was all there. I knew it by heart. I was the system. It just forgot to log me out. There was a clause buried in the 12.9 section of our transfer controls, written during a particularly nasty audit year. Trevor had scanned it. His initials were on the approval, but he never read it. Not really. Because if he had, he would have known that the clause had a retroactivity mechanism, one I'd built in case someone tried to process a major transfer without the proper sign-off during a system error or administrative gap. Translation: if a CFO transition isn't validated via two-party compliance acknowledgement, legacy and new, the clause activates. And what does it do? It nullifies any high-risk wire above $100M automatically, without an override, with a timestamp lock. I checked the logs, no acknowledgement of the transition from my end. No system signal, no revocation, nothing. I was still, legally and technically, a gatekeeper. They thought they'd boxed me out, but all they did was close the lid on a live grenade. So I opened a fresh file, labeled it Obsolete Liability Final PDF, and I smiled. It was almost poetic. They called me obsolete, but I was the contingency plan no one remembered to delete. Let's see how streamlined Trevor feels when his $400M gala surprise wires itself straight into a wall. 3 days after the consulting opportunity landed in my inbox like a pastel-colored coffin, Trevor sent out an all-hands video update with the charisma of a discount game show host. Big things ahead, he grinned from his glassbox office. We fully migrated our core finance systems. Seamless, clean, no need for redundant oversight. Big shout out to the team. He paused, made that smug eye contact only with the camera move and said it. We've got it now. My inbox pinged less after that. Requests I used to get daily, flagged approvals, anomalies, internal verification pings, they just stopped. I tried accessing the high-volume wire interface the next morning. Dashboard denied. Error 403, access revoked. No warning, no explanation. I pinged IT, no response. I escalated to finance security. You'll need to go through the new CFO for access change requests, so I did. I emailed Trevor directly like a professional. His reply came 37 minutes later. We appreciate your past contributions, Judith. As you transition into a new role, it's best we streamline data flow and avoid system redundancy. Let's empower the new team together. I stared at the screen so long, the cursor burned into my retina. Then I leaned back, opened a legal pad, and wrote the date in bold at the top. System lockout initiated. No formal revocation logged. That night, I pulled the thick, leather-bound binder from the back of my hall closet. Notebooks, diagrams, audit trail logs, years of architecture, and I called Angela Cross. Angela had been my lawyer during the merger fiasco in 2019 when 2 board members tried to float phantom assets on paper and pin the collapse on finance ops. She wasn't flashy, just thorough. The kind of woman who didn't speak unless she was holding a stapled packet with tabs, footnotes, and a witness. We met at a small cafe 2 towns over. She wore a faded blazer that screamed "Don't underestimate me," and sipped black coffee while I laid out the documents. She didn't interrupt, just turned each page like she was peeling back drywall after a water leak. When I showed her the clause under Standard 12.9b, her eyebrow twitched, and I pointed to the active timestamp, her lips pressed into a line. Then I dropped the printout of the wire transfer draft from the investor acquisition file, the one I'd quietly pulled before my access vanished completely. She read the metadata, looked at the fine print. Her finger hovered over a field labeled Primary Approval ID Legacy, J. Merrick Active. Then she looked up. They didn't pull your ID? Nope. And they scheduled a $400M transfer? Yup. 9 a.m., day of the gala. She closed the folder and exhaled slowly like someone watching a hurricane form through a glass door. You know what this means, right? Tell me. If they try to authorize that wire without your dual confirmation, it'll fail. Full system break. No manual override without rollback, and rollback takes 72 hours minimum. Maybe longer with the new system logs. Angela chuckled. Jesus, you built them a self-destruct switch. No, I built them a parachute. They're the ones trying to jump without asking where it is. We worked out a plan, not to sabotage, just to prepare, to protect myself. I wasn't going to do anything illegal. Everything I'd built was by the book, their book. I was just going to let the system do what it was designed to do, protect the firm from irresponsible transfer activity. Even if the irresponsibility wore designer loafers and said we've got it now like it was a TED quote. I went home that night and opened the investor release schedule. There it was, bold as brass, acquisition announcement, 8 p.m. gala pending transfer confirmation at 9 a.m. Trevor thought he'd cut me out, but my name was still in the bloodline of every wire they moved. And I wasn't obsolete, I was embedded. My final day at Brixley arrived with the hollow thud of false gratitude. They sent cupcakes. HR handed me a branded fleece. Someone even mustered a "will miss your attention to detail," like I was a glorified spell-check function. No one looked me in the eye except for Terry from compliance, who whispered this place is gonna burn without you on the way to the bathroom. At 3 p.m., attended what was supposed to be my final obligation, a routine quarterly audit debrief. Trevor, of course, skipped it, sent one of his spreadsheet interns instead, who wore cologne like it was war paint and used the word synergy 3 times in under 10 minutes. Perfect, because that meeting was exactly where I needed to be. I'd waited until now because it had to be subtle, legal, quiet. Any earlier and they might notice. Any later and it wouldn't take effect in time. When the junior auditor clicked open the live compliance doc for Standard 12.9, I asked sweetly if I could make one last legacy clarification for record continuity. He waved his hand like he couldn't care less, so I typed. Slowly, clearly, with witnesses in the room. Nothing hidden. Amendment, Clause 12.9b, Roman 7. In the event of CFO transition without dual acknowledgement from outgoing and incoming parties, any scheduled wire transfer exceeding $100 million will be rendered invalid if executed within 72 hours of clause activation. The system shall issue a silent block pending verification protocol. No override permitted under Tier 1 credentials. No bells, no whistles, just policy. Policy I helped write. And policy Trevor had re-signed in his haste to look efficient. My access still held for exactly 3 more hours. Just enough time. I timestamped it, 4:16 p.m., Wednesday. Gala was Saturday at 8 p.m. Wire scheduled for 9 a.m., Saturday. Clause went hot, Wednesday at 9 a.m. sharp. Exactly 72 hours before the transfer. A bullet in the chamber with no trigger but time. I left the meeting with a soft thank you and a stack of audit folders no one asked me to take. No one even questioned what I typed. Why would they? I was transitioning. A ghost already. On the way home, I stopped by a print shop. The guy behind the counter was young, bored, probably stoned. I slid him a flash drive and said, I need a single name card. Gala format, metallic ink. He raised a brow. Name, obsolete liability, I said, deadpan. He smirked, typed it in, and asked that, like, ironic? You could say that. I picked black velvet cardstock with silver embossing. The kind that screams money and menace. Just enough flash to make it feel like a joke, but only to the ones who didn't get it. The ones who would get it? They'd see it for what it was. A ghost returning to the ballroom. At home, I tucked the card into a small velvet envelope and laid it beside a clutch purse already packed with the printed clause and a hard copy of the audit transcript. Insurance. Not for me. For anyone who tried to say they didn't know. I made tea, fed the cat, watched a rerun of a murder mystery where the killer left no trace, just a door left ajar and a light still swinging. Trevor probably thought I was at home, crocheting or decaying. He didn't realize I was finishing the last line of a system that would quietly kill his crown jewel acquisition in front of the firm, the investors, the press. I didn't need revenge. I needed precision. I wasn't angry. I was surgical. Let them laugh. Let them pat themselves on the back. Let them clink their glasses at the gala under gold lights and chandeliers. Because when the transfer hit the system Saturday morning, I'd already be a ghost. And the system? It would remember exactly who built it. The envelope was thick. Expensive. One of those cardstock monstrosities with gold trim and wax seal nonsense, meant to impress people who have never scrubbed toner out of their sleeves. It arrived at my house on a Thursday morning with no return address, no note, just my name, printed in elegant calligraphy I hadn't seen since wedding invitations were still a thing. I opened it slowly, half expecting glitter or a cease and desist. Instead, the Brixley Partners Annual Gala, a night of vision, velocity, and victory. Date, Saturday. Venue, the Atrium on Fulton. Dress, formal black tie. Honoree, Trevor Lang, CFO for Leadership in Innovation and Growth. The taste in my mouth went metallic. There was no way that was intentional. I'd been scrubbed from internal directories. My desk was cleaned out by someone from facilities wearing gloves. I was a ghost, remember? And yet, I flipped the card over. On the back, in small embossed print, Table 4 reserved, J. Merrick. A mistake? Maybe. Or maybe the events team hadn't gotten the memo from Trevor's personal burn book. Or maybe the system they used to track attendance still pulled from my original calendar access, the one no one properly revoked. Either way, it was poetic. I RSVP'd online under J. Merrick. No email, no fanfare, just attending special dietary restriction. Revenge is best served cold. By Friday, I had everything ready. The dress, black velvet, subtle slit, classic neckline. The kind that whispers I remember when tailoring mattered. The name card, obsolete liability in silver on black, slipped inside my clutch next to the clause. I'd printed it on heavy stock paper, watermarked with the audit seal. Clause 12.9b, Roman 7, in full, notarized, annotated. I even highlighted the activation timestamp and Trevor's initials from the approval log. If this went nuclear, no one would be able to say they hadn't seen it coming. The clause would be my shield and, if need be, my sword. Then came the final piece, the wire timing. I'd been monitoring the acquisition chatter through back channels. A former assistant still friendly with me had forwarded a project outline by mistake, one of those BCC email leaks that corporate types swear don't happen. It was labeled Operation Falcon. I skimmed past the puffery and jargon until I found it. Wire initiation, 9 o'clock a.m., gala day. Settlement required by 3 o'clock p.m., gala day. Announcement scheduled, 8 o'clock p.m., gala night. My breath caught. We're wiring the money hours before the gala speech. A final flourish before Trevor's big moment, meaning the clause I activated Wednesday morning would hit the 72-hour mark right as the system attempted the transfer. Beautiful. He'd raise his champagne, smile for the press, announce a deal that had quietly already failed, and I wouldn't need to say a word. All I had to do now was show up. I spent the rest of Friday prepping like a surgeon, hair in rollers, clutch packed with the clause and backup documentation. Printed RSVP in case anyone got twitchy. Name card sealed and centered. I lit a lavender candle, not for calm but control, because inside I wasn't calm. I was burning, not from rage but precision. Focus. That tight, needle-point fury women of a certain age carry behind our eyes after years of being told you're so good at keeping things organized. Poise is a language men like Trevor can't read. They mistake it for passivity, for agreement, for submission. But poise? Poise is the face you wear while you load the last chamber. And mine was ready. The first thing I noticed at the gala was how loud money sounds when it thinks it's invincible. The atrium on Fulton was dressed to kill, glass chandeliers hanging like frozen fireworks, velvet curtains drawn just enough to hide the sponsor logos, the scent of rented opulence lingering in the air like expensive lies. Waitstaff floated through the room like trained swans, balancing trays of champagne that probably cost more than my last quarterly bonus. And there was Trevor Lang, Brixley's freshly minted boy king of finance, working the room like he'd invented mergers himself. He wore a navy tux that probably came with its own tax shelter, his teeth too white for someone that shallow, laughing with investors who didn't care what they'd just bought, only that someone would clap when it was announced. I watched from the shadows near the bar at first, swirling a glass of Prosecco I didn't intend to finish. No one recognized me, or they pretended not to. Either way, I was invisible in a sea of backless gowns and 0% body fat ambition. Until he saw me. It was small, a flicker in the corner of his eye as he turned from a photographer. His smile stayed frozen, but something behind it cracked for just a moment, like a man seeing a painting tilt on its nail. I raised my glass. He didn't wave back, perfect. When the event coordinator clinked her mic at 7:57, I made my move. The ballroom dimmed. Light shifted to the stage and Trevor stepped up, all polished veneer and PR confidence. The room hushed. "Good evening, everyone," he began, voice smooth as a bribe. "Tonight we celebrate growth, vision, and most of all, momentum." The room applauded on cue. My heels clicked softly across the marble, lost in the sound. I walked the perimeter like a phantom, weaving past couples and committees until I stood just behind the riser's left edge, close enough to smell his cologne, a sharp synthetic citrus that always reminded me of overcompensating. He raised his glass. That was my cue. I stepped forward, leaned in just enough for my breath to hit the back of his neck, and whispered, "Check the 9 a.m. wire authorization." He flinched, not visibly, not enough to break the illusion, but enough that I saw his hand twitch at his side. Enough that he knew the voice, knew the name. I stepped back and vanished into the crowd like smoke. He kept going. "I'm proud to announce that today, Brixley has completed a major milestone, a $400 million acquisition that will," his phone buzzed. Mid-sentence, mid-smile, buzz again, hard, insistent. He hesitated, just a fraction, eyes darting to the podium, then down. He tried to ignore it, but the device vibrated against his thigh like a wasp under his skin. He reached for it. Still speaking, voice a touch higher now. "Redefine how we approach growth and streamline," buzz. He glanced down. And that's when I saw it, the breath, that sharp, involuntary inhale people take when the air shifts and they suddenly realize the floor might not be there anymore. Mouth opened slightly. Words failed. I didn't need to stay. I didn't need to see the moment collapse in full. I'd already won. As I turned to leave, I passed an investor near the edge of the crowd. He wore a plum tie and an expression carved from confusion. "Where's our confirmation document?" He whispered to no one in particular. I didn't turn back. Let the system speak now. Let it deliver its judgment with the quiet fury of logic long ignored. The lights dimmed again. Not for drama, just a slow malfunction. And somewhere behind me, a man with everything to lose was realizing he hadn't read the fine print, but I had. The screen lit up like a detonator. "Trevor, mid-toast, read the message meant for no audience but his own conscience. Transfer failure. Code 12.9b legacy dual authorization required. Transaction rejected. No settlement initiated." It repeated itself. He blinked, as if reading it again would bend reality. But reality didn't bend, it just sharpened around him like a trap snapping shut. "A $400 million acquisition that will position Brixley at the forefront," of his voice cracked. He tried again. That will, another buzz. This time from his assistant's phone, who stood offstage pale-faced, trying to wave him down without catching the crowd's attention. And the crowd, silent, not from awe but confusion, the kind that curdles in a room when champagne bubbles turn to static. Trevor looked up. His eyes darted, frantic, scanning tables like a man trying to find the exit in a dream where all the doors are painted shut. He saw table 4. The place card was there, but the seat was empty. Only 2 words in silver foil remained: obsolete liability. He gripped the podium so hard his knuckles whitened. "Excuse me for just a moment," he said, smiling a death rictus grin that didn't reach his eyes. He turned from the mic. Below the riser, a man in a gray suit, one of the investor liaisons, was already making his way forward, face thundercloud dark. "Where's our confirmation document?" he asked, calm but sharp. "We've got reporters here and a scheduled wire announcement in 4 minutes." "Why didn't we receive settlement proof?" Trevor opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed. "Must be a delay in the back channel. I'll check with ops." He pulled out his phone again, thumb trembling as he refreshed the wire portal. Still red, still failed, still locked. And then he saw it, buried in the log authorization chain. Incomplete legacy signatory, J. Merrick active, override, denied, the words blurred. His brain couldn't compute the legal language he had rushed through months earlier. The clause he'd signed without reading. The one he'd dismissed as holdover clutter. From somewhere onstage, a soft feedback hum bled into the room. Behind him, the projector flickered to the title slide. Operation Falcon, announcing the future. But there was no future. Not tonight, not without the money, not without the wire, and the only person who could unlock it was gone. I was already in the car, backseat, black SUV, quiet driver, no small talk. I took one last look at the atrium as we turned the corner. Golden lights, flashbulbs, man unraveling behind a glass podium. I slid the velvet name card from my clutch, ran a thumb over the letters, then tucked it into my coat pocket like a pressed flower. The clause had done exactly what it was designed to do: protect the company from its own arrogance. From letting a boy with buzzwords and bone structure treat compliance like an inconvenience. They had every chance to learn. They chose not to, so the system remembered for them. And me? I didn't smile, didn't cry. I just stared out the window at a city that never looked more mine. Because when power forgets who built the walls, it deserves to learn, brick by crumbling brick. By 7:18 the next morning, every executive at Brixley had legal breathing down their necks. The wire didn't just fail, it flagged a protocol breach severe enough to trigger a full-scale internal review. IT logs were subpoenaed before breakfast. Security footage was pulled from the finance ops floor. Compliance initiated a forensic audit, so quickly they skipped the usual good morning emails and went straight to DEFCON-level folder combing. The term Clause 12.9b was whispered like a curse through the hallways, quiet, sharp, and entirely unfamiliar to most of the people using it. Trevor didn't show up to the 8 a.m. emergency sync. Instead, he sent a terse group message, working to resolve legacy approval bug. Do not speak to press. By 8:15, the board chair had flown in early from Atlanta. By 8:32, the lead investor's rep had demanded a full report on the clause. By 9 o'clock, they'd traced it, right there in black and white compliance records. Clause 12.9b, Roman 7, inserted under the original protocol doc, ratified during a standard control rollover 3 months prior. Time-stamped, sealed, and most damning of all, countersigned by Trevor Lang himself. In his rush to streamline legacy structures, he'd reapproved the existing compliance package wholesale. Never read it, just flip to the signature page and sign like it was an Uber receipt. That signature was now the knife in his own ribs. The clause wasn't sabotage, it wasn't malicious. It wasn't even hidden, it was policy. And now, it was the reason their $400 million acquisition had imploded in front of media, investors, and half of Upper Manhattan. The funding source, an international equity group with all the patience of a lit fuse, backed out before lunch. Sent a formal withdrawal citing uncertainty of internal process integrity. The PR team attempted triage. Leaked a half-hearted statement about unexpected technical hurdles and timing realignment. It fell flatter than a spreadsheet without formulas. Inside Brixley's walls, though, no one was buying the story. The board was livid, not just at the deal failure, but the optics. They'd stood on stage with Trevor, toasted to his vision, clapped for his modernization. Now they looked like they'd handed a scalpel to a toddler and asked him to perform open-heart surgery. One director, who'd sat on the finance committee during my tenure, reportedly threw a stress ball at a glass door and muttered, "She warned us. She damn well warned us." But it was too late. The wire was dead. The clause was real. And the woman they'd labeled obsolete liability had walked away in silence without touching a single thing that wasn't hers. I didn't post about it, didn't leak screenshots, didn't give a soundbite to the trade blogs already sniffing blood. I sat at my kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee and watched the story get chewed through corporate Slack screenshots and weekend finance gossip threads. Every mention of my name was clinical, factual, unimpeachable. Clause originated with J. Merrick, legacy officer of record. Compliance protocol was unchanged during handoff. No evidence of misconduct. Clause was signed into effect months prior. I wasn't the villain. I was the warning label. I told them the system had rules, that arrogance doesn't exempt you from architecture, that if you don't bother reading what you're dismantling, eventually the floor falls out. And now the silence said everything. No one called me. No one dared. They were too busy trying to figure out how a woman they buried politely had just sunk the biggest acquisition in firm history without ever raising her voice. I didn't need noise. I had the claws. The office was quieter than I expected. Not sterile, not cold, just quiet. The kind of quiet that came from confidence, not silence. No pinging Slack notifications. No fake laughs bouncing off glass walls, just the low hum of intention. I sat across from the investor who, 1 week prior, had watched his $400 million acquisition collapse mid-toast. Same tailored suit, same gold cufflinks, but less performative now. No entourage, no monologue, just him, 2 mugs of coffee and a stack of papers on the table between us. He poured mine first. No assistant, no cup holder tray, he did it himself, which said more than 1,000 apologies ever could. Judith, he said finally, I'm not going to pretend that didn't sting. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He smiled, thin but real. But I'm also not stupid. He slid the top sheet across the table. The header wasn't Brixley, wasn't even in their sector. Different name, different logo. A firm I'd heard whispers about, small, aggressive, ready to scale, a competitor of Brixley's acquisition target. He tapped the paper once, then leaned back. We're pivoting. Their competitor is hungrier, faster, and has cleaner books. We're going to back them instead. And, I asked, taking a slow sip of coffee, and we want you to help us get it right this time. No flattery, no pitch deck. Just a direct offer from a man who had learned, the hard way, what happens when you mistake experience for irrelevance. You won't be in finance, he said, not directly. You'll sit above it, strategy, systems, continuity. Your clause cost us a deal, but it also saved us from inheriting a mess we didn't see coming. I let the moment breathe. Then asked the one question that mattered. Will I have access? He reached into his jacket, pulled out a fresh security badge, and slid it across the table. The photo was new, the name sharp. The clearance level? Full. You're not obsolete, he said, pouring himself a second cup. You were the core system. They just didn't bother to read the manual. I didn't smile, not because I wasn't satisfied, but because this wasn't about satisfaction. This was about alignment. I took the badge. We shook hands, no fanfare. On my way out, I passed through the front doors, straight into the scanner by reception. No pause, no beep, no questions, just a soft mechanical chirp. And then, access granted. No one applauded, no one clapped. But this time, the system knew exactly who I was, and I was back where I belonged, inside. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.